Hey everyone, we're back with another week of Find Your Film. It's where we are reviewing 3 movies this week. Each of them, I'm trying to actually weave how all of these 3 are actually related. Well, I guess 2 of them have to deal with animals in a way. One has to deal with a dragon. There's another movie that deals with, I suppose, Groundhog Day version of Killing, which is a very interesting movie. I'm actually short selling it. I can't wait till we talk about that in a second. I am Greg Srzavasti. I mentioned for our video podcast, I'm Stray Srzavasti. I am just a stray straggler of a human being. Stray is going to be coming up very, very soon in this podcast. I am joined by Eric Holmes. Eric Holmes, visitor from Darker Worlds. We already knew that, Eric. Why did you have to put that there as your moniker?
I saw a movie about the rocks coming from the skies. That's a terrible example. It's a terrible impression, but yeah, it's a movie that may come up later on today.
Oh, very, very good. And we're rounding out our trio is Bruce Perky. He is just simply put Perky Dog. Perky Dog in lowercase. I'm trying to find out what the lowercase. Are you just being humble, Bruce Perky, by putting
Yes,
yourself?
I'm just a humble perky dog, just wandering the streets.
Are you wandering the streets of Alabama, Los Angeles, Colorado Springs, or Istanbul, Turkey?
We'll have to find out later.
We'll have to find that out later. Yeah, we have a lot of things to cover this week. I'm gonna do a little bit of a movie rewind. Oh, and Eric Holmes is plugging a new shirt from Anderson Cowan, the director of this film called Groupers. Eric Holmes, visitor from Darker Worlds. What does it say above that picture on your shirt? Do you know?
It says hate, crime. It's you hate crimes, and this is a crime. So it's a hate criming us.
Hate criminess. That is in reference to our I guess what I was going to say, brothers in arms. Our brother, our good buddy Anderson Cowan, who is my co-host over at Cinematics, and more importantly, he's a friend to Bruce Perky, friend to Eric Holmes, and sometimes I can call myself a friend to Anderson Cowan as well. So this week we have 3 movies. We have this movie called Stray, which is it's basically centers on several dogs, mainly one dog named Zaytin over in Turkey. That's going to be one of our movies. And then all 3 of us have seen that. And then we're going to also cover Raya and the Last Dragon. That's a movie. Bruce, have you heard about Raya and the Last Dragon? Anything? Have you heard anything at all?
I just like yesterday saw a blurb pop up in a picture of the poster, but I didn't know anything about it other than it's coming out in Disney, I think.
It's coming out. Yes. Eric Holmes, do you know something about Raya and the Last Dragon?
I didn't hear about it till yesterday, and then I saw the picture. I'm like, oh, okay, I probably saw like maybe a commercial or a picture or something online.
Mm.
But to say that I've known about it and I'm looking forward to it, I have no idea what it is, other than it looks to be an animated movie of some sort.
Well, good news. The movie comes out March 5th, I believe, in select theaters. It also comes out on Disney Plus. Here's the thing, though. It comes out on Disney Plus for the premium service. Premium service meaning if you want to see Raya and the Last Dragon in the comfort of your own home, apartment, domicile, you're going to have to pay $29.99 for the pleasure. I saw that at 1:30 in the morning because for some reason, I woke up really early. I wanted to actually watch it. So I'll be talking about that as well on this episode. So we have a lot to cover. Before we get to our main stuff, Bruce, let's start with you. What's your movie rewind of the week?
Mine's really quick. You guys had both watched Cherry last week on Apple TV Plus, and I was only just starting it when the episode started, so I couldn't really chime in. And I definitely wasn't as enthusiastic as Greg, I was a little less enthusiastic than Eric as well, I would say.
Boy, you didn't think it was a visual fever dream that adrenalized? Did it adrenalize you or adrenalize you? Did it turn you on cinematically, man?
It was
Russo
one
brothers?
of those movies that's like designed to annoy me. I think it's like it has all the factors. It has all the money, all the talent, all the skills, none of the script, none of the interesting story, and to me, the entirely wrong tone. Like it's supposed to be a real serious kind of movie, and it was done to me in a really overly stylized, like self-consciously way that made it almost trivialized what it was doing to my eyes.
Mm.
And then it used a montage at one point to a point that had me actually literally flipping off the screen. I was just angered by it. I was like, this is idiotic. And to me, it was like it trivialized the hardest part of the story, which is what the montage showed, and it glamorized and enjoyed the worst part of the story. And I will say, Ciara
Bravo. Yeah.
Bravo. She was okay in this, but she's really good in another show I saw recently. So she might come up again soon in the next coming weeks. But
Oh,
the thing that really annoyed me about her character is she was like the idealized, vision. Tell me if I'm wrong about this. They had her whole little like
Go ahead.
choker. She had like a little choker ribbon that she wore. That was kind of like her signature of like innocence and beauty. And then later on, was she not using that to tie her arm off when she shot heroin? I'm pretty sure she was. And that was when I was like, fuck this movie so hard.
Eric Holmes, are you gonna pile on like Bruce is? Are you gonna join the camp on Cherry?
Obviously, I didn't hate it as much as Bruce does, but I agree with everything Bruce says, and still better than Endgame.
Still better than Endgame, but would you recommend Cherry? Would you recommend to Cherry if people say, "Hey, you know what? I have Apple TV Plus. I want to see I'm thinking of spending 2 hours and 20 minutes. Should I spend it watching Cherry?" What do you think, Eric? Would you recommend it?
Yeah. I mean, I think Cherry, like it. I think a lot of people that are really gonna watch this are people that like the Marvel type movies. And this would be a movie that they'd be like, hey, yeah, wow, this is pretty cool. And, more discerning tastes may differ. But I think for the people that are fans of the Russo brothers might like it. Or maybe they'll hate it because there's no superheroes in it. I have no idea. But I thought it was, I thought this was definitely entertaining. But again, I just kept thinking, and I don't know if Bruce thought the same thing, but I just kept thinking the whole time, I really want to put in dead presidents right now.
That was, and I've heard other people say the same thing, and I had the same thought, was that it was like for every part of this movie, I could think of a better movie that did the similar sort of things, kind of divided into three parts. But I will give the caveat, because this is my taste, maybe not your taste, and I feel like, like we talked about I Care a Lot a couple weeks ago, and I can totally see people hating that movie even though we loved it, because it's like if the style works for you and kind of the vibe, then you're in. But a lot of people won't be on that movie. Same thing here. Like I said, it was kind of like designed for me not to like it. It's not a terrible movie. It's just the vibe is wrong for my brain. So if the vibe is you're liking that vibe in the first 30 minutes, you'll probably really love the movie because it does its story in an entertaining fashion. So
yeah, very very cool. We have all three. Eric is right down the middle on this. He sees its flaws. Bruce is towards the left, would not recommend it. I definitely recommend Cherry. I love the style. I'm a Russo brothers fan. Fever Dream. And I actually want to make Bruce Berkey's stomach churn. About stylization. Like for example, director Jacques Demy with Umbrellas of Cherbourg. That's a certain style, just like the Russo brothers have a certain style. I wanted to put Jacques Demy and the Russo brothers in the same sentence.
Oh my God.
And you know what makes Bruce's stomach really turn? He knows that I'm actually not saying that in jest. Yes, if you like the stylization of the Russo brothers, I say check out Cherry, but I can see a lot of people going one way or the other. I think that's what makes movies like this very interesting, and I love movies that really really tear people apart as far as their opinions. So that is Cherry. That is Cherry. By the way, if you have Apple TV Plus, it comes out March 12th. I still believe it might be playing in select theaters, but most people will be able to see it on March 12th. That is our final movie rewind before we get to our main reviews. Okay, well, I have one more thing. I know Eric Holmes, I think it was Eric Holmes, was it last week or maybe a couple of weeks ago when you actually gave a not recommend to Willy's Wonderland? You did not like it whatsoever because of it was derivative. It just wasn't fun for you.
I don't know the I mean, it is, but a lot of movies are derivative. So that wouldn't be necessarily a critique, a bad thing on my part. I just think that in a world where Uncle Peckerhead and Psycho Goreman exists, this movie doesn't quite meet that level. Again, if I saw this movie like 3 years ago, I probably think it was pretty fun and enjoyed it a lot more than I did. But I mean, these B movie type movies have definitely elevated well past their B movie roots, and I don't think Willy's Wonderland quite got there.
Well, I saw Willy's Wonderland, and because I had to actually interview the actress, the co-star Emily Tosta, and I recently interviewed her, and The full interview is up for our Cinematics Patreon. I was expecting really nothing from this movie due to Eric Holmes's review of it. And what's in the good news is you and I disagree with it because I had such low expectations. I went just to have fun. Willy's Wonderland, the story about a loner played by Nicolas Cage, who goes into this, yes, Willy's Wonderland, where it's sort of a warehouse of animatronics. Seemingly they don't move, but once he starts cleaning up the place, that's his job, is to clean it up for the night, and then he'll get his car, his Camaro, back in the morning. You're pointing to something, to something, Bruce Perky, a pelican or something, a flamingo. Is that a flamingo? I always wonder what that bird was. Anyway, so I ended up really enjoying it. It was a fun movie. It wasn't among Nicolas Cage's best work, like Leaving Las Vegas, or I'm trying to think of, what is it, Lord of War. I'm trying to think, or adaptation, but just as a fun ride, watching Nicolas Cage not speak, which is very. I remember you said that was weird. Why not have Nicolas Cage silent throughout the movie? I just thought that was a really interesting touch that director Kevin Lewis had. I found it to be okay. It's now available on demand everywhere. Would love to hear what you guys think. Do you side with Eric Holmes on this, or do you side with me regarding Willy's Wonderland being just a fun movie? It's great to see. If you want to see a bunch of animatronic fights with Nicolas Cage and Emily Tosta and a bunch of other youths, there's also an actress there named Beth Grant. You don't know who Beth Grant is, but when you see her in the movie, she plays a sheriff or a cop or law person. You'll know her because you've seen Beth Grant in a million things. So that is available on demand. That is my movie rewind. I recommend it. Eric Holmes does not recommend it. Let's see what you guys have to say. Bruce Perky, you're going to probably watch this one down the road, maybe?
Yeah, at some point, probably not for I think it's $20 rental, but I mean, this will pop up soon, and I'll certain junk food movies, even if I know I'm not going to like the junk food, I have to watch them sometimes. I just can't help myself. So
so you're actually preparing yourself to really not like it as much as,
which might be to its advantage. I might end up kind of digging it. So there's certain movies like that I just end up watching. Like I'll be sitting at home and be like, I shouldn't watch this. It's like, eating bad food, but it tastes really good, you think, until you're done, and then you're like, oh, I have a stomach ache. It's like,
you see, I'm helping Willy's Wonderland. I'm trying to set the bar so low that you're going to watch and go, this movie was actually really good. I don't know what Eric's being such a stick in the mud for.
You're doing the Bruce trick. The Bruce trick. Yeah. Say something is shitty and people watch it.
You're a Willy's Wonderland double agent. So that is Willy's Wonderland. Now we're getting to our main review of the week, and that is Stray. It's directed, shot, and edited by Elizabeth Lowe. She also produced the movie. The reason why I wanted all three of us to actually cover Stray, it seems interesting. It centers on a bunch of dogs, stray dogs, existing on the streets of Istanbul, Turkey. And then I looked at the running time, 72 minutes, and I go, wow, 72 minutes. That's a movie that all three of us can digest just like a nice, tasty morsel and not even be worse for wear. Okay. That's a premise. Dogs living in Turkey. Perky dog. That's the name, Perky Dog. Okay. Then actually the main dog is not called Perky Dog. The main dog is called Zeytin, Zeytin. And even though there's other dogs you see in the doc, most of it centers on his journey. One of the things I really loved about Stray is it's not a talking head documentary. You're not filled in on the social ills or the climate of Istanbul, Turkey. You're actually just living the life of these dogs for 72 minutes. You just get to see the world through their eyes. Bruce Perky, is that one of the reasons? Hopefully you found Stray to be an interesting movie. I just like the fact that there's really not too much talking in the movie, and I think that's a big plus.
Yeah, I think right with you on this. I really enjoyed it. I like the fact that there's no talking, and the only talking that you do hear are people in the vicinity of the dogs, and and I think they're all speaking Turkish. I don't think any of them speak English. So you see subtitles to show what they're saying, but I think the filming is probably 90% at the level of the dogs. So like 2 feet off the ground or whatever. It's not at, human height. So I think that really helps too. I can see a lot of people saying this is just boring, or it's just and fair enough, right? If it's not for them, they want more of a narrative of some sort. They might say it's boring. They might say it's just like a cat video for dogs, like an extended one of those. I really kind of found some interesting, profound moments in this. Especially, you have moments where the dogs like cross paths with things that might be political or emotional, and by being kind of at the dog level, to me it kind of grounds everything, and it kind of shows in a sense how trivial some of these like big things that we do as humans really are, like when really all we should be doing is walking around, meeting our friends, finding out how to get food, finding out where to sleep. I mean, that's the dog's life. And the few humans that really do stick out and connect with them are the kids that live on the street sniffing glue. And I thought that was really interesting too, where it's kind of like, just like in our society and most societies, that the kind of outcasts are almost unseen and kind of invisible, the dogs are similar in the society. So it kind of equalizes them as well. Humanizes both sides there. Good.
Yeah. Oh, Eric Holmes, your thoughts on Stray? Did you like it as much as Bruce Perky did?
Well, it was no cherry, I can tell you that. No, just kidding. This reminded me a lot of we talked about Maya Deren, and she has I had to look up the name of the movie because I forgot, but The Private Life of a Cat, where she took a bunch of footage of a cat and made a narrative out of it. And that's pretty much what Elizabeth Lowe, is that correct?
Yeah.
It pretty much seems what she did with this, because it's a documentary, but it doesn't really play like a documentary. There's certain camera moves where I'm like, they had to have staged this. There's just no way around it, because there's a camera right there, and like the dog's just being way too cooperative for this camera, and it just may be that's how how everything fell together, and good on her for that. But yeah, this was definitely kind of took what Maya Deren did with The Private Life of a Cat and just kind of bumped it up a notch, which is odd because this is not a documentary. I saw your interview with her, Greg, and she says that no one's, her idea of doing this was that lots of movies have animals in them, but they always center around the people. She wanted to center around the animal, and definitely there's people in it, but they're in the background, almost kind of juxtaposing what's happening with the dog. And this is definitely interesting. I don't know this is for everyone, or I mean, the dog is cute, so maybe it's for more people than I think it's for. Oh, and if you like dog buttholes, plenty of dog buttholes. But that's just with the camera angle. Obviously, she's following the dog, so you're gonna see some dog BH once in a while. But yeah, this is it's definitely an interesting documentary. I would just call this a movie, because I know it's a documentary. This does not feel like a documentary to me. And that's not a slight on the movie. It feels more like a narrative. Granted, it's a narrative where you're following an animal, but it doesn't look like a documentary. It's really slick looking, and
I can see that.
Yeah, and might not be for everybody, but I kind of like to see someone take this concept, and maybe Elizabeth Lowe does something. Maybe this becomes her niche, but I don't think this is the apex of where you can go with this kind of filmmaking. I think you can take it further. Not saying this is bad, but this is like, this feels like the next step. And then let's take another step and see how far we can go with this, because I do like the idea of just following an animal around and making a narrative out of them.
I don't know if this makes any sense, Bruce, because I'm sure you've over the years you've listened. Both of you guys have listened to like Brian Eno. Watching Stray to me is sort of like a meditative experience, because you're like you were saying, Eric, doesn't feel like a documentary, and I kind of know where you're going with this, because in documentary you're fed a whole lot of information, and even though there's some documentaries, they know how to shoot it really well and in a cinematic form, this one, Stray, it's not really feeding you things to believe in or all this info. You're just sort of in this visceral journey for those 72 minutes, and it does feel like cinema. And that, I think what you were saying is really more of it's a compliment, actually, than because when we think of documentaries, most of them, and that's probably why I don't watch them as much as, let's say, Anderson Cowan, is I always have this feeling that I'm going to be fed a whole bunch of information I don't want to learn, and it's all going to be static shots of talking heads. And that's one of the things that really sort of turns me off sometimes. You're obviously, I think you're going to do a documentary later on in this podcast, Eric, but movies like Stray, I think you're right. It's about pushing the form. I love these type of documentaries where it goes a different way, and it gives you that in many ways it can be a sublime experience. And in fact, at 72 minutes, I wonder what we would think if we actually saw it again a year from now, because it's just such a different way of looking at the form.
Don't you feel like it's almost, in a way, it's kind of works together with movies like Nomadland?
Yes.
In a strange way. It's now, with those are a little more directly narrative, but they kind of tap into a similar thing. And both movies are all about taking a moment that isn't necessarily scripted, but what it's doing is it's highlighting the eye and the vision of the filmmaker almost as much as the subject. Because I think of certain shots in this movie. A perfect example is there's one where they're following, I'm pretty sure it was Zayton or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Zayton.
And they're following him, and like she is a lot of times, she's kind of doing a following shot, like an over-the-shoulder shot. And they enter a park, and then Zaytan sits up, and then in the distance you see a dog at the other end of the park. And any dog owner immediately knows, uh-oh, this could go two different ways. And it's a simple thing, but she sits with it and she frames it, and it adds that dramatic flair to that moment. And that's kind of, I think, where it gets what Eric's talking about, that kind of, it feels like a story, because not only is she picking what shots to show us, but she's framing the shots, and she's deciding what to sit on. She's deciding which angle to shoot the dog at and what's in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that helps. And one last thing, did you all love the closing credits as much as I loved the closing credits?
I'm an idiot. I didn't stay for the closing credits. I just, like, as soon as I'm one of those guys, as soon as there's closing credits. Oh, really? I
They're so
should have.
beautiful. They're so awesome.
Oh, it's a beautiful and okay.
I'm just going to tell people, because it doesn't matter. It's not a spoiler.
Okay. Yeah.
It's beautiful. So the last shot of the movie is basically Zaytan's face, and he's kind of sitting in this park, if I remember correctly, kind of sitting in a park. And you probably remember this, and you kind of hear it's in Istanbul, Turkey, Muslim, area. So they have the prayers, you hear the prayers going out over the city. And the prayers going out over the city, and it's just a shot as the credits are going of Zaytan just sitting there as the prayers are going. And then not more than maybe 30 seconds later, he just starts slowly howling along to it. Just slowly howling like any dog you've ever had. And the whole rest of the credits is just him like stopping and then howling again when the credits start up. And I was just like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's
I missed
probably
it.
my favorite credit sequence in years. So beautiful.
Eric, you and I get demerits just for that. We we never said we were more nuanced than Bruce Perky. So
I'm in tune with the dog.
Real quick is I do like that you brought up Nomadland, because Nomadland is a narrative, feels like a documentary. This is documentary, feels like a narrative. So actually they are kind of perfect double feature. But is Elizabeth Lowe, I'm guessing she's a cinematographer for this as well, or did she
shot it? Yeah, it's just shot. She shot, edited, and directed it. Yeah, crazy.
Okay, now I'm watching this suspecting that these things are staged and she's able to, but it's documentary. Maybe she just caught that how it is. And this movie does look fantastic. Can you imagine what she would do as an actual doing her own cinematography for a narrative feature, like actually being able to control the set and everything? Because look, if you can make a movie look this good and just kind of have to follow a dog around and get whatever you can, I mean,
yes,
I think this is a talent that she has that could easily go overlooked.
Well, no, I agree with you, Eric. And I'm so weirded out about this, because here I am, I'm praising Cherry's self-conscious stylization. And one of the things, again, I love it when filmmakers, they have on an indie project like this with Stray, she could have gone the completely saccharine, morose, bring out the tissues moment, and she doesn't do it. It's more of a behavior piece. it's more of a life piece. And I just loved how she pulled back. And I'm saying this when here I am, I'm praising Cherry as much as possible. I guess that's a language of cinema. Sometimes I love it when they just slather it with style, like De Palma or the Russo brothers. And I can't believe I mentioned De Palma and Russo brothers in the same sentence. I just turned Eric Holmes' stomach right now. But yeah, I really love Stray's subtle nature. Do you guys agree? Subtle. It's subtle.
Yes.
I suppose it's. I mean, it just this is kind of what documentary should be. You just kind of follow the thing and see what happens. And I mean, yeah,
Okay.
there's definitely a lot to say about this. And
Right.
I kind of want to go on this for a couple hours.
Whoa.
Which is where
You know what sucks? No one has ever said that to me.
Yeah.
It's
because he didn't ask me.
Oh, very, very, very sweet. No, I'm sorry, Eric. I just screwed up your thought. What were we gonna say? What were we gonna complain?
Oh no, like I don't think like I'm so torn on it. Like this won't be my favorite documentary of the year. Like it's just not going to be up there. But there's so much in this, and the more I'm thinking about it, like even talk about the cinematography, what the amount of talent she has to have, Elizabeth Lowe has to have to put this together. And even though like as a documentary, I feel the same way about this as I did The Vigil. I didn't like The Vigil, but man, I was impressed by The Vigil. I'm excited to see what the director does next. I'm really excited to see what Elizabeth Lowe does next. And actually, she seemed with your interview, she seemed really passionate about this kind of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of want to see if she just like she stepped up a next level from Maya Deren, which is pretty impressive in and of itself. I wonder if she's going to kind of go along a similar path and step up from herself going forward. But yeah, I'm definitely impressed. Don't know that everyone will like it. Don't know that I love it, but I love a lot of what went into it.
Well, I have bad news for you, Eric and Bruce. After we were done with that interview, I sent her an Apple TV Plus link of Cherry and told her to just digest all of the Russo brothers movies down the road.
Greg was like, "Yeah, that was pretty good. Let me show you what real filmmaking."
So awesome.
But no, I really hope that the more I'm thinking about it, the more talented I see that she is, and I hope big things happen for her because she's definitely a unique voice and she has a buttload of talent, and I look forward to see what she has coming out next.
Couldn't have been better said. Listeners, listen to Eric Holmes because Stray hits theaters and especially on demand March 5th. 72 minutes. I know you guys are busy. Give this movie a shot. Like Eric and Bruce said, it is an acquired taste. If you like what we were kind of saying about Stray regarding its approach to narrative and documentary filmmaking, give this one a shot. So that is Stray. Now, before we get to our recommendations, Bruce Perky and I we're going to review a movie called Lucky. The reason why last week, the reason why Eric Holmes was not able to join us for The Father was because my stupid brain sent hamslime@gmail.com to the publicist. Thank goodness the next day I put hamslime@gmail.com. That is Eric Holmes's personal email. And finally, Eric Holmes has seen The Father. Eric Holmes, we're not going to ask you what you honestly thought of The Father until you're going to save that reaction for next week. Correct?
I choose to say nothing about anything.
Oh, very good. Very good. But by the way, Bruce Perky and I reviewed The Father last episode. For the March 12th episode, Eric Holmes will do a rewind on The Father. Just a little recap. Bruce Perky was thinking last week when he reviewed it that it was, for him, Anthony Hopkins' best performance, probably his best performance from the movies of Hopkins he had seen. Now, me and Bruce, we got to see Lucky. Oh, and going back to Eric, there was this one, I'm not complaining. There's a way it was really hard to see the screening link. So Eric Holmes is being left out of this review, not due to negligence, due to the inconvenience of said link. It was tough for me to try to get it.
I believe what you're trying to say to our listeners is you're welcome. You get a reprieve.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, let me just start off with Bruce. I've been yapping. Brea Grant, very good actress. We talked earlier, maybe last year, about her directing, and not debut, her directing feature, 12-Hour Shift. We were going back and forth. All three of us saw that movie. I really enjoyed it. I think, Bruce, you kind of liked it. Eric, if I recall, you liked it as well. Now she's in Lucky, the story of a woman. She's an author. She's sort of a self-help author. I think her book is called like Do It Alone or Doing It Alone. And it's about her. The book's about just trying to go your own way and making your own decisions and not relying on anybody. She's actually married. The problem is with this person, with Brea Grant's character in Lucky, is she plays this woman named May. There is a stalker, a killer, a robber, or whatever, some mysterious person, some dude who invades the home of she and her husband's. And one night, the husband stops him, I believe, with a golf club. The problem is, within seconds, that killer or that bad person disappears. And what happens in Lucky throughout the rest of the narrative is we get to understand who this May person is, played by Brea Grant, and her lot in life, at least within this time frame, is to every day have a confrontation with a killer. And it's like that Bill Murray film Groundhog Day, where these events keep on repeating itself, but it's different ways. She meets the killer in different ways, and then she has to confront him in different ways as well. Bruce Perky, your thoughts on this film? It's also written by Brea Grant, and it's directed by Natasha Kermani.
Interesting initial concept, not very interesting execution for me, and very uninteresting production design. I don't like to crap on little independent movies, but I did not like this movie very much. Especially the look of this movie. It looked to me like every set looked like a model home. Like it wasn't it. A movie like this should just allow itself to have a low budget and be a little more, I don't know, the settings just can be a little more gritty. They can be a little more roughed up. Everything seemed really extra polished, overlit, bright. And other than that, the concept, I think it was very kind of ham-handedly metaphorical. I know what they were trying to go for. I understand what they were trying to go for with this kind of Twilight Zone-esque idea. But it was just really, I thought, very blunt and not very interesting in the way it played out.
Lucky is now it comes out March 4th on Shudder. By the time you receive this podcast, fellow listener, it'll probably be available already on Shudder. What's interesting is you were mentioning about the production design and its take and everything like that. Yes, it's supposed to sort of be like a Twilight Zone. And when I'm interviewing the director tomorrow, so I'm going to bring up these things to her as well. See if and I'm going to say my co-host Eric Holmes was telling me about look, we're gonna throw you under the bus, Eric Holmes. Bruce Perky.
Go ahead. I'm cool with it.
We have Bruce Perky on the Find Your Film insurance class, so he's protected. As soon as he nailed me on the painted bird, he's the opposite of persona non grata because I don't make sense as a human being. But I ended up, I'll be honest, I like Brea Grant. I remember her from Heroes. I was over the board. I really loved her work in 12-Hour Shift. She doesn't star in it, but she's the director. She has a vision. She penned the script. I like the script. The director, I actually requested for this interview after watching the screening because, yes, the production design is sterile. And I felt that it was
it's almost like soap opera or something. Like there's something.
I agree, Bruce, but it's so, you know what? Maybe I'm off my rocker, but I was saying to myself, this is sterile and this artifice works for me. People are saying their lines in a very different way. Bruce, don't you think?
I get that part. I understand what they're doing.
I don't understand, Bruce, what you're doing myself. But so it's really interesting and eccentric for me, and it's self-conscious. Why are you laughing, Eric? It's
because you guys are totally selling me on this movie.
it's a weird movie. The ending,
it's not weird enough.
Okay, weird enough. Okay, I really loved. Okay, what Natasha Kermani and Brea Grant are trying to talk about regarding this whole idea with the killer, this woman who's stalked by a killer. There's a lot of themes to it. There's a lot of stuff that you can really unpack like an onion. I thought it was really interesting. We've all seen movies about gaslighting. This is, I think, a solid movie about gaslighting. And also at the end, though I did see the end coming, I can't wait to talk to Natasha about the ending of this film. I thought it was really well done. Bruce, you did not like. Was there anything about this movie that you thought was good?
I like the basic concept. I like the concept of it, but I don't think it was like just the idea, like, right, that this keeps happening every night. But to me, it led to such an overly telegraphed and overly obvious point that it needed to have something more weird or unique or crazy or surrealistic or something. It was kind of like, oh boy, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything else. Get myself in trouble.
No, we're not going to. Yeah.
To me, and I don't usually say this kind of thing. Some people like to say this all the time. To me, it's felt like somebody who doesn't really like weird horror movies trying to make a weird horror movie and not really having like the experience of being a fan of those kind of movies. Like they're trying to make something out of their actual love because they just wanted to make the point. Like it felt like the point overrode the actual storytelling and the actual filmmaking. And I think it needs to kind of be there hand in hand to really make a more effective, fun movie.
I agree with you. I think the point overrode the actual storytelling. And actually, that's what I liked about the movie, that it has a lot to say about something. And I don't want to really give too much away regarding spoilers, regarding the state of mind or the state of the state regarding Bray Grant's character, May. I thought it was interesting. I would not have tried to commission this interview if I was not interested in what this movie had to say. Again, it's going to be an acquired taste. I would like to see what a lot of people think about this movie. I understand if you're looking for a pure horror film with stylization, Argento, this kind of, no.
I think a better comparison would be like something like Get Out. Like Get Out, to me, does kind of the kind of things that this movie is trying to do, but it does it in a more interesting way.
Fair enough. So that is Lucky. It is, as you're going to listen to this, it's actually streaming now on Shudder. I recommend it. I liked it. Bruce Perky did not like it.
And you know me, I don't want to burn my Shudder bridges. I love Shudder.
And Bruce Perky loves Shudder. He just did not love Lucky. Again, I am really sad that he didn't like Lucky, because then Natasha Kermani, who I'm going to interview tomorrow, will have to know that Eric Holmes was not a huge fan of Lucky. Speaking of which, Eric Holmes, what are you? That should be a running joke. I'm a running joke myself. I'm turning 50, so I need to look at myself in the mirror more often. We're now done with our main featured reviews, all three. We're gonna do now our first recommendation, Eric Holmes. By the way, are you going to watch Lucky on Shudder? I would love to see what you think of Lucky maybe next week. I don't know.
That at first I wasn't, but since Bruce hates it so much.
I don't hate it. Come on, you guys. Don't put words into Eric's mouth. Come on now. Stop that.
Oh yeah, that's right. I hate it. But yeah, it sounds, I don't know that I'll like it or not, but like the more you guys were talking about it, it was like, I'm still intrigued. I'm assuming it's kind of like a Bruce with Willy's Wonderland. I'm like,
yes,
probably not gonna like it, but I still want to see what this is all about.
I mean, that's what I think that's what we're supposed to do. All three of us are supposed to have really differing opinions. Okay, it's cool that we get all these screening links and we get all these access to interviews, but hopefully the listeners will get a well-rounded. I think sometimes when all three of us have different opinions, I think that's the best thing for the listener, because they can sift through all this stuff. But
they come to our webs, or they come to our podcast to say, I want to know if I should see the movie. And then one person says it's great, one person says it's okay, and one person hates it. And then they leave exactly the way they came in, confused about what they should think about the movie.
And you forgot. They're also asking, who the heck is paying Greg off this week?
No, but realistically, think about it. Realistically, they'll probably kind of get a vibe of like who they generally tend to kind of go with on certain kind of movies. Sure. So eventually they'll be like, oh, Bruce didn't like that, but I always like the movies Bruce doesn't like, so I'm gonna go for this. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's more important of and granted, I've been doing this for about a year now, so not very long. I always thought it was good to, whether or not you like the movie, but I think it's more important to say who would like this movie. I'll bring up the Vigil again. I didn't like the Vigil, but there's certain people that will absolutely love the Vigil. And I think it's more value added to say, this is what the movie is, and these are the people who are going to enjoy it. Yeah. And then if someone doesn't like it, then, more power to them. If they love it, great.
And also kind of along the same lines, like what you did or what you didn't like about it will help people understand too. Like if I said this is like way too over the top and crazy and active and blah, 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 but that's the kind of movie you like, then you'll know like, oh, okay, well, I might like that. Or vice versa. I love this because it's really subdued and moody and atmospheric, and you don't like that kind of thing, then you'll know that you might like it, so I don't know.
I just wonder if there's, from all the stuff I've done with you guys and cinematics, I wonder if there's actually a person out there who really implicitly trusts my judgment. Would be interested to know, because no one ever emails me. So that might be my answer.
No, everyone emails you. You just don't check them.
Yeah. Oh,
That's a good point. Eric Holmes. Speaking of Eric Holmes, what is your first recommendation for this week?
I'll go with this. So we touched on it a little bit last week because I did watch it, and I got donkey brains and I forgot that I did watch it. But now we have that. But this is a 2020 movie directed by Christopher Landon, starring Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton.
Yeah, Catherine Newton.
And it's called Freaky, and it's like Freaky Friday, but instead of mother or daughter switching bodies, it's a body swap movie. But little teenage girl and a serial killer swap bodies. So there's a serial killer out on the loose, but he's got the mind of a teenage girl, and the teenage girl's got the mind of a serial killer. And this is Christopher Landon did Happy Death Day 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And this is right up there with them, or right down there with them if you hated them. Talking about whether or not you like this type of movie. It's been out a while, so I think everyone that kind of wanted to see it already did. So kind of late to the game. But this is a pretty fun movie, much like Happy Death Day 1 and Happy Death Day 2. It takes a premise that you've heard before, does some kind of fun with it, and this is no different. It's a fun horror movie, funny a lot of the times, and I would definitely give this a shot if you were a fan of the Happy Death Day movies.
Do you think Catherine Newton has a really solid career ahead of her, just from because you saw the map of Tiny Perfect Things and this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's weird that I didn't even know it was the same person.
Oh wow! Okay.
I watched both movies in the same week, and it didn't even dawn on me. And then you're like, oh yeah, she was in Freaky. I'm like, hey, I saw that. Who was she in Freaky? Oh, the main character. All right, it's she Gary Oldman me.
What question here for you, Eric Holmes? It's watch now on Flix Fling via streaming, but most of the ways you can see it is by renting it for about $6, $5.99. Is it worth at least at the very okay?
Absolutely, yeah. This is a popcorn movie. Hey guys, you want to get some popcorn and stay and watch a scary movie? This is that movie. Much like it's Psycho Goreman is like a little funnier, and this movie's funny, but this movie has actual kind of scares in it. It's a air quote scary movie, but it's also got some, it's got a lot of laughs. This is definitely like a stay and eat some popcorn and watch a scary movie type movie.
Okay, cool. So that is Freaky, starring Mr. Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton from the map of Tiny Perfect Things. I definitely want to check this out. Bruce, you've seen this movie, right?
I have not. I haven't seen either the Happy Death Day movies either, and I should have seen at least one of these movies by now. So it will happen soon. These are definitely kind of where I was talking about earlier, movies that I would be like, it's probably going to be fun. I'll check it out, and usually I end up enjoying them. So
and if you haven't seen any of them, start with the Happy Death Days and then go to Freaky after that. I think this one's a little better than the Happy Death Days. But they're kind of, they're all kind of on the same level. But if you start with the Happy Death Day, and then you'll kind of ease into the fun these kind of movies are. But if you watch Happy Death Day and you're like, nope, then just stop.
Okay, understandable.
Christopher Landon, what a great career he's had. He's obviously the son of Michael Landon, the late Michael Landon. So that is Christopher Landon, and that is
Freaky. I did not know that.
Oh, you
didn't?
That makes me
like him. I was a fan of Michael Landon back in the day.
I'm 50, so I'm sure Bruce and I, when we were kids, at least I did. I used to watch a couple of episodes of Highway to Heaven back in the day. So,
or Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, of course, Little House on the
Prairie.
Prairie.
Bonanza.
Yeah, or Bonanza, of course, Bonanza. Yes, of course.
I hope I'm not getting the Laura Ingalls Wilder
Yeah.
Wrote I had the this is so stupid. I had the book collection of Little House on the Prairie books, and then I'm thinking about that now. I'm like, why the fuck did I like that so much? But maybe I don't know. I was obsessed with that as a kid, and I have no idea why. Because I remember almost nothing about any of that. I just remember being a fan of Michael Land, and rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. Nice trip down memory lane. Bruce Perky, what do you got for our first recommendation for this week?
I have it's either a long short or a short movie. It's 45 minutes long. It's called Taipei Suicide Story. And I'm not going to bring these to the show that often because it's another film festival movie, but I kept seeing it get a little bit of buzz off the Slam Dance Film Festival. There was one day left to spend your $10 and get into the festival. So I thought, well, I'll pop in there. I'll spend $10 towards a good cause and check out Taipei Suicide Story. It's directed by Keff, Keff. Okay. I know nothing about Keff, but that is the director. I don't even know if that's a man, woman, or otherwise. It's a very interesting and cool little story. Here's the basic concept. You have a guy who basically is like the receptionist, the front desk guy at a suicide hotel. And the way the suicide hotel works, well, basically the movie starts with cleaning up the next day. Workers are walking around. They're all dressed in like hazmat suits. They're rolling a body out, covered in a sheet. Another room, they're sitting there talking while there's a person hung in the background. Everyday life. And then one of the guys comes downstairs to the front desk guy and says, "Oh, I really messed up. I'm so sorry. Well, what'd you do? And he tells the front desk guy, "Well, there's a woman in room, 201, whatever. She's been there 6 days." He's like, "Is she dead?" I'm like, "Nope. She's alive." He gets upset because the rule is this: with this hotel, you get one night. You either kill yourself or you check out and you go on your way. It's your chance to decide what you want to do with your life. She hasn't done that. So he goes up and talks to her. They have a little connection. And he says, okay. First he thought maybe she was a reporter or somebody trying to get in there and kind of get a story about the place. He finds out she's just really indecisive and kind of depressed and all the normal things you'd expect from somebody in a hotel like that. He says, you have one more night. You either have to leave or do what you came here to do. And the movie is that night. And kind of how those two interact and don't interact throughout that night. Really cool.
That's great. It's a great story. Very inventive, I thought. Executed really well to the hilt.
Yep. Really subtle, really good. You think it's going to go certain directions. You're not sure. I think it's one of those movies you could imagine being expanded into a full-length feature, but I'm kind of glad it didn't because I probably forced them to be really streamlined with the story and just tell the story the way it is and let it be what it is. It's really good.
I kind of hate you right now. That sounds like an awesome premise, and I want to watch it right now. But apparently, this is not available.
I checked. I don't think so. I'm gonna keep my eyes open. This is one of those ones when it comes back around one way or another, like video on demand. Yes. I'm sure it will really soon. I'll kind of call it out again.
This will absolutely be rewound once it comes out because dude, that premise sounds great, and I cannot wait to watch this one.
And how's the ending? Like I said, it's really subtle. But how's the ending?
Yeah.
The ending is spot on, really good. And I want to say it's weird. I almost get Jarmusch a little bit. It's not quite as creatively poetic as Jarmusch, but just kind of the way some Jarmusch just has that feeling of just like you're just sitting with real characters in a real situation, and it's not adorned with a lot of extra stuff. You just let it kind of be in this world. So yeah, I would look out for this movie, and I would look out for more stuff by this person.
And what's it called again? The
Taipei Suicide Story.
Yeah, Taipei Suicide Story. Okay.
I'm man, it is my tough. Favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I remember when Bruce Perky months ago he pulled out what is it? Obsession, the one with Sam Neill and
Possession.
Isabella Gianni and Sam Neill. You just another good find. But the only catch is it's hard to find, right? So
yeah, that one's really hard to find. Yeah, this one probably won't be. It'll probably show up soon, and you'll probably be able to get a hold of it. So
definitely, and I'll keep an eye out for it. But I got donkey brains. But definitely keep me updated because I think this is probably a movie. It from what you're saying, this sounds like a movie we should probably follow and up until its release. I think.
I actually reached out to him and I kept hearing about it. And I was trying to see if I could get a screener for it and stuff. And I was trying to write to him and stuff, but it's really hard. And I was just like, I'll just spend the $10, even though there's like 4 hours left. There's 4 hours left in
My
the
gosh.
slam dance thing. And I'm like, whatever. And I watched one other short that was fantastic too, but it's like a 7-minute short that was one of the most mind blowing things I've ever seen. So I was mad at myself for not doing more slam dance. So yeah, next year.
That is very cool. Very cool. A nice investment on Slam Dance. Got it just right under the gun. I have one recommendation for this week, and it's a new film, Raya and the Last Dragon. Hits theaters March 5th. Premiere access March 5th on Disney Plus. If you decide to stay home for $29.99. I'm not going to go over the plot. Raya and the Last Dragon. You just know there's a girl named Raya, voiced by Kelly Marie Tran from those Star Wars films. She played Rose Tico, I believe, in those recent Star Wars films. Really good in those. A little bit underutilized, in my opinion, but she is very good as Raya. Raya is this young woman. She's very good. She knows how to fight. She and her father, they are tasked, and her father is voiced by Daniel Day Kim. They are keeping this sort of dragon stone or dragon heart. They live in this area called the Heart, and their job is to guard it with their lives, because if that stone is someone steals it or breaks that stone, then an evil power will be unleashed upon this world, and it's not going to be a good idea, because I forgot what the name of the evil force is, but it's this really weird purple mist that when it passes by anybody, any living being, that living being is turned to stone. Basically, the Medusa effect. The world is called Kumandra. Okay, so that is the premise of Raya and the Last Dragon. The Last Dragon, we all know, comes alive again once the stone is compromised, and that the person who plays the Last Dragon, that's character's name is Sisu, and it's voiced by Aquafina. And the rest of the voice cast includes Gemma Chan, Sandra Oh, Benedict Wong, mainly Asian voice cast, and Alan Tudyk stands out. He's also, but we love Alan Tudyk. He plays the requisite sidekick, the cute little animal sidekick. This time, this cute sidekick, his name is Tuk Tuk. So Tuk. Very cute sidekick in this movie. Okay. Do you guys like Disney Plus films, animated films? I know, Eric Holmes, you really liked Onwards, because next week we will be doing an RPG situation with your game. But you loved Onward a lot, right, Eric?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I would say I like Pixar for the most part. The rest of them are kind of hit and miss depending on what it is.
And Bruce, I don't know if you have Disney Plus, but you will watch as much. Okay, you'll watch as much whenever like Soul is out, or
and my kids will have me watch things once in a while. Like, so they'll say, I want you to watch this movie. I thought it was good, and I'll watch it with them.
Yeah. I liked Onward. I like Up. I like a lot of these movies. I even like movies that are under Walt Disney Animation movies. This movie is a Walt Disney Animation Studios release. The thing is, unlike both of you, my love for animation, I believe, is lower than both of you. Okay. And there are times when, as good as Onward is, I do get a little bit, seeing it for the 10th time with my niece Claire, it gets to be too much. Even reading the ebooks. Well, I'm sorry.
I'm saying in that context, yes, I'm right there with you. Like Onward is watched once. If I'm forced to watch it 30 times, to be like, I get it.
I mean, I know both of you guys
talking to the legs.
I think, if I recall, both of you guys loved Soul, and I believe it's one of Anderson Cowan's favorite films of the year. I did not like Soul that much, but you know what's interesting is Raya and the Last Dragon. To me, I can watch this movie 100 times, and why? The action is amazing. The storyline there. I mentioned the evil mist. I believe the evil mist is called the Droon, the purple mist. I'm not gonna give too much away, but the evil force in the movie isn't as strong as the rest of the story, and that's a credit to the actual story, the way it's written, the way it's developed, because the movie deals more with the inner workings of our own frailties. What is it like to trust someone or not trust them? Have a sense of distrust? Do you have compassion or empathy for your fellow brother and sister? It's hammered home in a very cool way in Raya and the Last Dragon. And the evil forces that you've seen in many animated films from yesteryear, I think it's taken a different tact with this movie. And in the third act, when good versus evil finally is I guess is unearthed. It's a nice little cool touch. It's a cool touch because it's a really well written and layered story. And I was surprised at the end of the movie. I'll be honest, chopping onions. I was chopping onions a little bit, yeah, at the end of Raya and the Last Dragon, and I'm so happy I was able to watch. I wasn't able to watch the first hour. My my mother was able to watch the first hour with Claire this today, so that's a really cool thing. I made sure, since our podcast makes millions of dollars, I was able to brag to my 4-year-old niece that her her dimwit of an uncle actually gets to have screening links and doesn't have to pay the $29.99. Yes, woe is me for in everything else, but once in a while I can be cool uncle with these cool screening links. Would love to hear what you
Cool.
guys think about this. You know what? Honestly, it's hard to come up with $30 these days, but I think as one of these things where should you wait for Raya and the Last Dragon when it comes out several months later on Disney Plus? I would honestly say no. I would say pony up the $30 if you have it for disposable income and go watch it with the people you love.
Well, and it's one of those things if it's the whole family too, right? If you have 3 or 4 people watching it,
Oh
then
yeah.
you know.
I'll tell you something. If it's just you and popcorn and soda, which is basically my entire 50 years, it's still worth the $30. It's still worth the $30. So that is my big recommendation for this week. Maybe down the road, Eric Holmes and Bruce Perky will be seeing, I'm sure they'll be seeing Raya and the Last Dragon. I'm sure Eric Holmes will immediately see it if it went over to YouTube and YouTube was charging $80 for the first screening for Raya and the Last Dragon, because we know Eric Holmes, he loves his YouTube. By the way, Eric, I have a problem with you this week. No mention
we
of
got-
YouTube as of yet. Do I have to mention YouTube? You're the one who's supposed to do it, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say, oh, we got a free screener link. Yeah, that's cool. They got it they got it for rent on YouTube. So just run down. I think with that, for me, it's just on the TV where the light bounces off. The what I use for my screener thing on YouTube. Just YouTube, a warm light, hit play, but it's just easier to rent it on YouTube a lot of times than to look at it on my phone, where
Yeah.
a lot of it comes up at. That's where that comes from. But I think it's you mentioned like the $30 for the Raya and the
Last
dragon,
Dragon. Yeah.
the Last Dragon. I wonder if we've dropped the ball, because we do get the screener link, so we don't gotta pay for these a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we take that into account, or haven't yet, or I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking. I should speak for myself. I don't know about you guys, but that's definitely something to consider.
Oh.
That I think I've dropped the ball on that a lot.
No. I'm
But
listeners.
there's certain movies like Psycho Gorman. Again, if it costs $30 to watch it, bring everyone over, pay the $30 and watch it. It's fantastic. And then there's other movies where like if it's $30, it's like that's a definite no. But if it's on, if it's free on something,
But
so
Most movies right now are like $5 or $6 at the most. That's the most common.
Yeah, they are. But I'm talking specifically about like the ones we get for screeners, which when they are available, sometimes they go like straight on Netflix or whatever. So if you already have Netflix, you get it free. But other times you got to rent them. I wonder if we should maybe be more mindful of that, or just I know I definitely need to be, but that might be a good value added thing to add going forward.
I don't
perhaps.
know, Bruce Perky, what does mindful mean? I'm trying to Google it. No, listeners, it's my job to get the screening links. I should have been more mindful about getting us on Disney Plus. That would be really interesting, because to be honest, in all fairness, Raya and the Last Dragon actually turned just really shook me at how good it was. And I'm going to see if we can start getting more stuff regarding Disney Plus, so you guys, listeners, can figure out whether it's worth it. Because here am I'm really talking this movie up, but Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes hopefully could have chimed in. We're on Netflix, we're on Apple TV Plus, we're definitely on YouTube and Shudder. We're spreading like a virus, folks. Don't worry, the good virus, the good kind. Okay, so we'll be fine. Disney Plus is our next avenue, and maybe Hulu, which Bruce Perky has been banging on the drum for the last several months. So we'll get on that as well. Eric Holmes.
I would also add to the idea of whether or not to rent or buy a movie. If there's like a Stray would be a good example. It's not a movie I love, but it's a movie I appreciate. That would be a movie you should probably if you can throw money at it, if you have the means to throw money at that movie, do it, because she's definitely a filmmaker that kind of deserves that. Whereas something like Cherry, if you got to throw like $20 at that, that's it. I mean, it's fine.
Cherry, throw 50 or $60. I want, you know what? I'll double down. Bruce Perky, 4 hours and 40 minutes. Cherry Part 2. Are we doing it?
No, God, no.
The point I'm getting at is that there's certain filmmakers that kind of go, like this is the thing they've been trying to make forever. They put their heart and soul into it, and no one, it doesn't get a lot of buzz. Those are the type of movies, like, even though if they're not for you, and if you have the means to, by the way, don't break the bank for any movie. You don't want to go homeless because you want to support the arts. That'd be very admirable of you. Just don't do that.
Unless it's groupers.
Yeah, unless it's groupers. Throw all the money you have at groupers, because the filmmaker is very good and the movie's very good, and just watch groupers. But no, like if there's a movie like Stray and you can pay like $20 to buy it or watch it for free on YouTube, and you have the $20, just pay the $20, because these are filmmakers that are just fighting tooth and nail to get their voices heard. Whereas something like Cherry, it's like they kind of got, like, to Bruce's point, to get all the resources dumped on them, and it's Cherry's fine. I like Cherry, but if you got $20, give it to the person that needs it, and the person that's going to make more interesting stuff in the future, and that emboldens them, and it kind of makes it so people with money that can fund future movies, maybe that might get them on the radar as well.
Well, I agree with you. You agree with that, Bruce? Because look, here's the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get to be too like in a conspiracy theory. I have 7 or 8 streaming services, right? And it's just one of these things where I don't like, even though we're called Find Your Film, finding your film also means what you just said. You're supporting the filmmaker for their respective indie film, whether it's groupers, whether it's Stray, whether it's something like Some Kind of Heaven, which we all enjoyed. Okay. And the idea that you're ultimately going to wait for it until it hits Amazon Prime Video or Hulu or 4 or 5 months down the road. I mean, I guess you can do that if you don't have the cash. I understand that, but sometimes it's really cool to just make your own friggin' decisions and actually pay some money to say, hey, you know what? I saw Some Kind of Heaven and I saw Stray, and it's not being carried by any streaming service, and I actually made my own decision. I think on a selfish level, it's kind of cool to actually make your own friggin' decision for once. You know what I'm saying?
So especially if you're a movie lover, because if you're a movie lover, it's the same thing as being a music lover. You're going to go pay to watch that band. You're going to go to pay to buy their albums. You're going to buy their t-shirts. It's the same exact thing. If you're a movie lover, you want them to make more movies that you are going to love. So you don't get another Endgame or whatever it is that you don't love as much, that gets all the money. So that's the whole point, I think.
Since we're on the subject, I would encourage anyone. I'm fine with this tirade. This is a tirade that needs to be rated. All ties rated. And we don't do mini calls to action, but we got a good group on cinematics, and Bruce does it a lot with the what's in the box.
Yeah.
But I would encourage anyone, and they kind of, people on cinematics do this anyway. And if you're not on the cinematics Facebook page, feel free to email us. But what's a little movie that you think needs a little boost, a little push? What's a movie that what's the movie that you should buy for $20 when you could rent it for $3?
Well, I just answered your own question. Rent-A-Pal. I remember Eric Holmes has been on the Rent-A-Pal thing, and Bruce, you can mention. We need to start doing that, and we'll reach out to the community as well. Rent-A-Pal. Fairness to Uncle Peckerhead, that was one of your tops. I think you're number 1 last year.
Yeah,
Bruce, Uncle
by far.
Peckerhead. You interviewed the guys over there, and you loved that movie as well. It's one of the things we're talking about. PG Psycho Gorman. Aside, and you were telling me how Shudder, the horror community, is really into these movies. That said, how much of a marketing budget do these movies have? They need to make their movies that money right out of the gate, meaning there should be more of a cross influence. Meaning it should, it should go past the Shudder crowd. It should go past the horror crowd. These
Yeah.
are the movies like PG Psycho Gorman. I'm assuming Rent-A-Pal, which I definitely have to see. These are the movies that we should definitely be really plugging away. In all fairness, I love Cherry. In all fairness to Cherry, that marketing budget is already set.
Right.
People are gonna know whether or not to stamp yes or no on Cherry. But I think a lot of people haven't heard what PG Psycho Gorman is. And if probably people knew a little bit more about Uncle Peckerhead, other than a small group of really just devoted cinephiles, especially or a horror group, then I think these filmmakers, like you said, Eric, they will have more of a financial space to make more Uncle Peckerheads or Rent-A-Pals, as opposed to saying, oh, you know what? I did Rent-A-Pal. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough money after the monies I accrued from Rent-A-Pal. I don't know if I can make another movie along that same, along those same lines.
Oh,
So
also, and I don't know how many filmmakers listen to us, but if there is anyone, I would say hit us up. Would you rather us watch it on free streaming? Would you rather us buy it? Would you rather us? Because I don't know how I'm guessing some filmmakers get more money if you buy it. Maybe some get more money if you rent it, or maybe if you I don't know. But if there are any filmmakers watching and you want to hit us up and go, no, actually, Eric, dumbass, you're wrong. You need to stream it on Shudder when it's playing on Shudder. Otherwise, I don't get it. If that's the case, then
okay.
anything you can do to give more money to the filmmakers so they can make more brilliant movies is what I'm getting at.
So director, please, Mr. Juan Diego Escobar Alzate from Lose the Flower of Evil, please contact Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes about what's the best way for us to make sure money goes into your coffers, because not selfishly, but selfishly for us, you can make some more interesting films for us to watch.
Yes. And give me your Cash App link so I can send you money, because that movie is awesome.
Yes, we got Lose the Flower of Evil, Rent-A-Pal, Bruce, Uncle Peckerhead, PG Psycho Gorman. This is going to be a running theme. We need to plug these movies every single friggin' week. Very good point. We went off a tangent. I like that tangent though. Bruce Perky, put us back on the road with another.
Yes.
I was going to make no more Cherry talk. No more for the rest of the episode. Okay. I'm not saying that to you, Bruce. I'm saying to all three of us. No, all three of us. But what's your next recommendation, Bruce?
Mine is, I've been watching WandaVision, which I actually am really enjoying now.
Yes. And I know Eric likes it a little bit more too, right?
No, he shook his head.
Okay.
He lost
it's fine. It's fine. I'll go.
Eric's.
Well, anyway, I had mentioned a couple weeks ago that I bought a bunch of DVDs.
Yes.
Well, one of the DVDs I bought is Marcy May, Marlene, which is one of the very first movies with Elizabeth Olsen. In fact, I think it's either her first or second feature, if I remember correctly. And I had heard about it forever. I never watched it. So I thought, good one to watch. It also includes a short Mary Last Scene, which is also related to it. Anyway, have you both seen this movie? Yes?
Okay, no, look. I saw this in 2011. The only thing I remember from this movie, Eric Holmes, you haven't seen it. Okay, well, I only remember John Hawkes was very, very good in this movie. And I remembered in 2000, this is on memory, I said to myself, Elizabeth Olsen, my goodness, she is a natural. She is definitely going places. Those are my two takes, but I'm looking at this cast.
I was going to read the cast, at least some of the cast. Go for it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, go ahead, Bruce. Sorry.
You got Elizabeth Olsen. You got Christopher Abbott, Brady Corbett, Hugh Dancy, Julia Gardner, who's blown up lately, John Hawkes, Sarah Paulson, and a bunch of other people.
I mean, there's this actress named Louisa Krause, and she's very good too. Amazing cast.
Amazing cast. So basic concept, this is directed by Sean Durkin. Like you said, it was 2011, I believe.
Yeah
2011. Once again, only available to rent or buy, not streaming anywhere. Like we said, I just picked up the DVD because I thought, I have never seen it. I want to see it, and I'm going to buy the stuff. The movie starts with a couple little shots of this like kind of bucolic farmhouse. It looks like there's a bunch of people living there. You're not sure. Is it a commune? What is it? You see all the men having dinner, and right off the gate, all the men are having dinner and all the women are in the kitchen watching them. Yeah. And then all the men get up and leave, and all the women go into the room and eat. Next shot is the next morning, and Martha, played by Elizabeth Olsen, gets up really early, kind of like the recent Invisible Man. She kind of sneaks out of this house. Somebody's looking out the window. They see her. She goes across the street. It's kind of like a country road and runs into the forest. And a couple people from the house run after her. She eventually, the next scene basically is her calling her sister to come pick her up. She's been missing for 2 years. And the rest of the movie is basically her with her sister, Sarah Paulson, and Sarah Paulson's husband, Hugh Dancy. And she's at their kind of summer house for a couple weeks. And she's obviously traumatized and not acting the way she used to act. First, for example, the first day they're there, they say, hey, let's go for a swim. She says, great. She walks down, strips off all of her clothes, and jumps into the water. And they're like, what are you doing? And as the movie goes on, you get flashbacks from the moment she arrived at that farmhouse in the country and basically gets indoctrinated into a cult. And throughout the whole movie, you're going back and forth between the present day and how she's obviously not quite right in the world anymore and not able to tell people what happened. She doesn't really tell people what happened. She just reacts differently to the world now as you see the progression of what happened to her in this cult. Very subtle, definitely will be triggering for people. For some of the things they don't sugarcoat some of the things that happen in that cult. A really, really effective, really interesting movie. I was looking because I think Sean Durkin, he has a movie that came out this last year called The Nest, which I've heard a lot of buzz about and I have not seen. And I really want to see that movie because
Got a ton of critical acclaim.
Yeah,
a lot of buzz. Yeah,
this movie is super good, and especially if you've been seeing, all the Marvel stuff she's done, but even better for me, the stuff she's done recently, like Ingrid Goes West and Wind River.
Oh, she's great.
She's really showing up to be an excellent actress. And if you want to see kind of the beginnings and how strong she was kind of right out of the gate, this is a really good place to go to.
Were you surprised at how good she was in this movie, or did you say, oh wow, now I know? Yeah, obviously she's going to be awesome in this movie.
I was surprised by how much she had to carry this movie. I mean, she is at the center of this movie and essentially is kind of out of the gate with this. So, I mean, it's really good. Yeah, she's excellent.
You know, which begs the question. I'm trying to think, why is Elizabeth Olsen not just starring as a lead in more movies?
She will be now. WandaVision is blown up so big. She's going to transcend beyond Marvel. Guarantee it.
Maybe. Iron Man died. What has Robert Downey Jr. been in since?
Oh, come on. He was in Doolittle. Didn't you?
My point exactly. Tom Holland is Spider-Man. Daisy Ridley is Rey in Star Wars. Like they get in these movies. They become stars within that genre.
But
maybe not so much after they leave.
I'm going to hold out hope because she made Wind River during the Marvel run.
Yes, so. She absolutely did that. I'm just saying, don't hold your breath too long.
Okay, glass half empty, Eric.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm the one that's half empty. Yeah, in this case, I am though. You're right.
You know, I grew up a big listeners. By the way, I'm a total shill. I grew up a huge Marvel fan growing up. So when I look at something like Wind River, I say, oh, it's so awesome to see Hawkeye and the Scarlet Witch team up in a separate snowy universe. So I'm sorry, folks. That is my version of Wind River. The only thing I wish is Josh Brolin. I would love to have seen for Wind River, if Josh Brolin showed up as Thanos in the film. That would have made it even better film. But that is Marcy, May, Marlene DVD. You really enjoyed it. Does your DVD come with any extra special features at all, or did it just come with the movie itself?
The movie and the short. He made a short as well.
Okay, I've never seen the short. Okay,
and the short is not any of the actor. Well, it's not her, but it's basically like another person before they get brought into the cult and how they get them into the cult.
Can you imagine if a director like Sean Durkin, and I throw this out to you guys, Sean Durkin, who did The Nest and Martha Marcy, May Marlene, guys like him, and who's the director from The Lighthouse? What is that guy's name?
Robert Eggers.
Eggers, and then the director of Ghost Story. Oh, Ghost Story. What's the guy's? Hold on, Ghost Story. But have those guys.
Dave
Lowry. Yeah, Dave Lowry, right? Dave Lowry.
Yeah.
Have those guys be the next wave of Marvel directors. That'd be interesting to see.
No.
You don't want to. No.
Do not want them to waste their time. A Dave Lowry Spider-Man would be great, but would not be nearly as transcendent as a Ghost Story. There's 0% chance David Lowry does a Marvel movie and it changes anyone's life the way a Ghost Story.
By the way, Pete's Dragon wasn't so bad. Pete's Dragon was not so bad for what it was. Did you see that interesting movie? But yeah, David Lowry, I agree. I like David Lowry being David Lowry. Eric Holmes, what do you have a final recommendation before we get to what's in the box with Bruce
Final,
Bucky?
yes, yes. We'll go with another documentary. This is a documentary directed by Werner Herzog and Clive Oppenheimer. I believe this is first Clive Oppenheimer. He's a volcanologist, geologist of some sort, specifically volcanoes. I'm sure I fucked that up. I'm sorry. I'm not a volcanologist. But this is a Werner Herzog movie, and it's basically about meteors. And a lot of how certain cultures turn meteors, seeing them as they saw them as signs from the gods from above glowing in the skies. and like how meteors were seen as messages from heaven, which started religions. Then they talk to other people. Like there's one guy that goes on top of the biggest roof in Oslo that he could find, and he takes a magnet and picks up all these little, like, all not quite microscopic, but these tiny little pieces of metal, and then they put a microscope under it to find out that they're just little itty bitty tiny little meteorites. Then they show up close-ups of those, and they got another Jewish guy that's part religious, part science. And so it does a lot of, it tries to marry science and religion, which is kind of annoying. But at the same time, it's still an interesting documentary. And anytime they go into science and talk about space, and like, for instance, they talk about, they go to this one observatory, and their whole job is to watch the skies. They're looking for new meteors that could possibly hit Earth. And, we looked at this part of the sky and there's nothing there. Good, moving on. Look at this part of the sky. There's nothing there. Look at this part of the sky. Whoa, hold on. What's that? Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, look at this part of the sky. So, but what would happen if these, what happens if you find something? Well, then we do this and that. And so you get that kind of angle. It takes the one idea and just kind of tackles it from a bunch of different directions. And just the fact that this is about science and space largely is so far up my alley. I'm kind of sitting on it. This movie, Fireball Visitors from Darker Worlds. I don't believe I said the name of it. It's Fireball Visitors from Darker Worlds. Is very interesting documentary, very fun documentary. And this is a documentary I will be watching a bunch of times because I'm a space nerd. And
it looks beautiful, man. I'm looking at some of the photos. It looks just cool to watch. I mean, just on a superficial level, just to turn your brain. I mean, obviously it's Herzog, so you're not going to turn your brain off, but just visually it looks good.
Yeah, it's funny because Werner Herzog, narrates it like he does a lot of his documentaries, probably all of his documentaries. There's one part where he's talking with this guy that's found I have to watch it again because I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a certain crystal formation. And then he starts explaining why this crystal formation is such a big deal. It's like, I don't want to bore you with what he's saying. He could be talking for 5 days, but we only have so much film. But I will just show you. And he's like, you're not fucking boring me. Just give it all to me. Just fucking stick it in. This is probably, and I don't like watching TV shows. I could watch like 10 seasons of this. There's so much information in this. But this is also information that I'm interested in. This might not be for everyone, but this is definitely right up my alley, and I absolutely love this.
Okay, so that is Fireball Visitors from Darker Worlds. It is now available on Apple TV Plus. Definitely want to check that out. Bruce, do you have the secret? What do you think? Werner Herzog, he's now 78 years old. How does he keep making movies at that clip? What's the secret?
He's just always been like a driven, I think. I mean, look at how he was with Klaus Kinski and all that stuff. He's always been a madman. I don't think he's probably one of those guys, like if whatever he picked in his life to do, he would be unhappy if he weren't working. Like if he were a chef, he'd probably be the same way as he is with a filmmaker,
Yeah, I know. Since 2015, he's done 10 films. What the heck? What? So
he's awesome.
He's awesome. He's the man. Eric, what do you think? What do you?
I mean, if you watch Werner Herzog's documentaries, you know he's got a sense. I don't know if he knows how funny he is. I have no idea. But he's like, he shows and going back to Stray, he shows a picture of the dog. It's like, look at these dogs. These animals have no idea how close they are to death. They're just a bunch of stupid idiots walking around. Like, this guy is fucking awesome.
He has this whole chicken thing. You've heard that before, right? Where it's like chickens, the stupidity and the flat brains, you know.
Okay.
They are just dumb creatures running around and have no idea of the glowing hot magma is about to rain down upon them.
That's a pretty good impression, I must say. Very good impression of Mr. Werner Herzog. So that is it. And oh, by the way, before we close our show, our next episode will be a director spotlight on director Ronald Neame. We are spotlighting the films The Poseidon Adventure and the Walter Matthau film Hopscotch. This guy is a no-name person, but he's so interesting. Bruce Perky is shaking the box very soon, but we'll be recording that episode this weekend. So if you want to actually cheat along with us, go check out The Poseidon Adventure and Hopscotch for reference regarding
Hopscotch.
Yes, Hopscotch regarding Ronald Neame. And now, Bruce, you've got your what's in the box thing. What movie are you going to review first before we get to
Jeff Bassin? I hope I'm saying your name right, Jeff Bassin. He had suggested we do the Guy Madden movie from 2007 called My Winnipeg, which is available on Criterion Channel or Apple. You can rent it on Apple. That's about it, I think. And there might be DVDs out there, but a lot of Guy Madden's movies on DVDs are like $80 because they've gone out of print for the last 10 years. So good luck with that. Boy, how do we describe this movie? Essentially, it's basically a history of Winnipeg, but told through the eyes of Guy Madden's experience living there and growing up there. So it's part history, part fantastical allegory, part poetry, part just recollections of his life. It's very energetic. It's also kind of vintage. It's also kind of like a silent movie. His style is really unique and really cool. Almost everything I've seen by his is black and white. Almost. He has a couple things that are in color. They kind of look like a cross between like Eraserhead era Lynch and Kenneth Anger, but a little more fun and frenetic. He has tons of shorts on YouTube you can check out too. So a perfect example, the basic concept is he's imagining himself trying to get out of Winnipeg, and like no one can get out of Winnipeg, right? So there's this kind of ongoing scene, this kind of staged scene of a guy in black and white in this train car trying to get out of the town. And as he's trying to get out of the town, he's telling the history of all these little things that happened in Winnipeg. He talks about the horses that froze trying to go across the river. And then you see footage, but you also see weird animations, like cutout animations. You know how in silent movies you have the title cards? He'll use title cards like almost as a repetition in the middle of scenes, almost like a hypnotic device where the same words will keep popping up. This is very experimental. I think it's super awesome and super fun. Definitely not for everybody. If you can get into the vibe of this, it's pretty fantastic and very, very, very unique vision this guy has. I would suggest go online and look up YouTube Guy Madden, and you'll see like a million of his shorts, and you really get a feel for kind of his style. Eric, you saw some, right? You saw the slap happy slap.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, he's done work with Isabella Rossellini. She's done a bunch of stuff with him. Oh, and last thing I'll mention about this movie, I think it's excellent. If you like experimental films, kind of like the stuff we talked about, Maya Deren, Lynch, Louis Buñuel, Salvador Dali, all that kind of stuff, but a little more fun, a little more. This stuff is always a little comedic. You might really dig this. The actress that plays his mother in this movie, she'll keep appearing kind of like a looming weird presence. Like she'll be outside the train window staring at him and stuff at certain parts. She is Anne Savage, who is very famous from a great noir from 1945 called, I bet you Greg knows.
Well, I'm looking at IMDb. I cheated. Detour, but I know my mother. She's a huge Anne Savage fan. So when I saw Anne Savage in one of the credits for My Winnipeg, I was, wow, Anne Savage. And the fact that Anne Savage hadn't really been working as much, he just sort of, I don't know how he pulled her out of a hat, but her last credit was Saved by the Bell in 1991. And then 16 years later, she's in a Guy Madden film, that documentary. I guess one would call it a documentary, My Winnipeg. So interesting choice.
Yeah, this is a documentary. And this is kind of like talking about documentary. This is barely a documentary. This is the idea. I mean, it's kind of taking the idea of like documentary is always more a display of the person's point of view and what they decide to show you in a documentary, especially historical documentaries. This is taking that to the extreme. And it's all basically Guy Madden's point of view of Winnipeg with some actual facts sprinkled in.
Is it one of these things where Guy Madden, if you like, for example, David Lynch, there's some people who they're going to love certain pick and choose with David Lynch films, but if you are a huge Lynchian fan, if you love all of his movies, you're just going to get into that language.
Yeah.
Do you think there are people who just love Guy Madden and they just love pretty much everything he does? And once they get that kind of diction or that language, they just ease into this thing more than the average viewer.
That's my feel, because I'm not experienced with Guy Madden until just literally the last 2 weeks. But after seeing 4 or 5 of his shorts and seeing this movie, my impression, and seeing trailers for some of his other longer movies, my impression is that his style is such a unique kind of way of approaching the filmmaking process that if you like these, you'll probably dig all of his stuff. And if you don't, you probably won't dig all of his stuff. So,
well, what if someone says, hey, you know what? I like experimental films, but there's a ton of experimental films. This movie is 80 minutes. What does it go beyond experimental for you? What makes it excellent for you in general?
yeah, well, because it does stick with the story. It does the experimental stuff, but it also tells compelling, interesting historical events from the history of Winnipeg. So in the middle of it, you're going to have this story all about this really crazy seance that happened with all these historical figures in Winnipeg one point. And he'll do it in a really weird, creative, like almost ballet style, but it's an interesting story. Or the story of the horses that are frozen in the river is super fascinating because I've seen those pictures. You probably have too, where it's like 10 or 12 frozen horse heads sticking out of the ice. They were there for the whole winter. Look it up. It's very like, it's some of the creepiest imagery you've ever seen from like the 20s.
Wow.
But he tells the story of that. And he takes those things and he expands upon them, and talks about lovers taking a walk and a stroll past the frozen heads during the winter, and just makes this incredibly weird thing around it. So I think the overall narrative of it is pretty fascinating. It's pretty fun. It never feels oppressive, I would say.
My appetite is whetted for My Winnipeg. Eric Holmes, you didn't see My Winnipeg, did you?
No, I did not.
You've only saw that one short by Guy Madden, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Should be interesting to check out. Thank you, Jeff Bassin. Is that how we pronounce your name, Jeff? For that pick for What's in the Box. Bruce is now picking up his next one for What's in the Box right now. Oh, here we go.
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
Okay.
Never gets old.
I didn't.
It does.
I didn't write the year down on this. I think, if I remember correctly, this is possibly from the 80s. You might. I'd be wrong about this. This is suggested by Jesper Quinn,
Okay.
who I think might have suggested Company of Wolves.
Company of Wolves. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesper. Yeah.
Dream Demon.
I don't even know what Dream Demon is. My goodness, Bruce. Oh, so you've seen this before?
I have not seen Dream Demon. No.
Dream.
My dream demon, I believe he can get me through the night.
Okay.
That's how that goes, right? Dream demon.
Yes,
that's how it goes.
yes. Very good. That is okay. So stars Gemma Redgrave, Kathleen Willott. I think Kathleen Willott is a really good character actress, I think, if I recall, and then also stars Timothy Spall. Very interesting cast. They're Bruce. So that was released, Dream Demon, 1988. Jesper Quinn, thank you for your Bruce.
No, I just remember it was the 80s. I couldn't remember if it was from the 80s or not.
You're right. So thank you, Jesper Quinn, for that recommendation. Dream Demon, 1988. It's a West German film shot in West Germany. That is 89 minutes, and it's horror, which I think Bruce Perky has seen his share of horror films. He recently posted, maybe I think today or the other day, about being so excited that the Ken Russell film The Devils is now streaming on Shudder.
I may be talking about that next week. We will see.
Okay. You know what? One thing I definitely did forget for this episode is our Entertain Mart giveaway. I was supposed to tease it at the beginning and I didn't. So we're going to tease it. Eric Holmes, I apologize to you. We're going to tease it for a Ronald Neame director spotlight. We actually we're gonna spot and when we talk about the Poseidon Adventure and Hopscotch, my apologies to you, Eric Holmes. That will be our number one with a bullet priority in a couple of days. That's neither here nor there. Eric Holmes is holding those cool cash cards. Definitely, it's not too late to enter, folks, for our Entertain Mart giveaway. 2 gift cards for $20 each. And have you picked up anything? Have you gone recently to Entertain Mart, Eric Holmes?
Not this week. I did not. This week I did not, but I will be going tomorrow. Fridays or not tomorrow, Friday. But Fridays are usually the days that I get off work and then stop on the way home. Sometimes I do it throughout the week, but this week I'm going Friday. So we'll see. Hey, we're recording the Ronald Neem
on
Saturday.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll hit you up on what I picked up on Friday.
Sounds good. By the way, listeners, the last thing that Eric Holmes picked on Entertainment Mart was the used copy of a Criterion copy of Hopscotch starring Walter Matthau. So excited to see that one. I am under the gun. I have to see both those movies. I actually borrowed his memoirs, so going to be reading a little bit of that soon. I haven't read in years, so trying to do a little bit more research regarding the filmmakers that we come across in the Find Your Film universe. Last week we ended with Bruce Perky. This week, Bruce, you want to say anything before we go? Any thoughts?
I've said enough.
You've said you're such a dream demon. Eric Holmes, lead us out. After that long tirade about indies and supporting your local indies, listeners.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Hit us up with some movies that are like newer movies or little independent filmmakers that are trying to, they had their first movie come out this year and they want to try to get their next movie, or maybe you're trying to get a movie out. Hit us up with what you're trying to do, Kickstarters, all that sort of stuff. It's something we talk about sometimes, but we haven't hit up recently, except for earlier today, of course. But it's always good to know about people doing cool things, and maybe some people trying to do a cool thing that needs a leg up to help them achieve their vision or achieve another vision.
Well, listeners, if you have indie films that you'd like to recommend to us, or if you are trying to crowdfunding or getting your project off the ground, whatever, anything within the indie realm that you want us to check out or maybe take a gander at, hit us up, info@findyourscene, or hit up Bruce Perky @gmail.com, or Hamslime, Eric Holmes. It's not ham slime, it's ham slime @gmail.com. Hit us up. We are finding your film. That's our job. We try to find films, and hopefully you guys can help us along our journey. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. Ronald Neem is next, and I was going to say we're hopscotching away, but that's a stupid thing to say. I'm done with saying stupid things. Folks, take care. Have a great rest of the week.